Hey everyone, it's your pal Ryan. We're not even 3 episodes into Buffalo Boys yet, and we already have a side series, Owner Orientation. This series is meant to collect the full interviews we conduct with each of our fellow WPFL owners and special guests, and put them in one place for your listening pleasure. Obviously, we can't feature entire interviews on our regular Buffalo Boys program, so Todd and I thought this would be a great place for those conversations to live, rather than losing them to time. Our first guest, as you know, was Nixon, our fun and friendly commissioner. What we've decided to do is include every question we asked him during our initial interview, even the questions and answers that were featured in our regular Buffalo Boys podcast. Those answers that were featured in the pod, however, have been drastically cut down. If you want to hear those full answers, make sure to check out episode 2, which is available now on YouTube. And before we begin, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Mike Simpson for creating our first official logo for Owner Orientation. Really appreciate the contribution, Mike, as always. And now, on to our full uncut interview with your commissioner, Nixon Ball. All right. Well, Nixon, as Todd and I did during week 1, we wanted to sort of ask you about your history of football, of fantasy, and of course, your favorite team. Everyone knows the Carolina Panthers.
I feel like I'm kind of the classic, indoctrinated by your dad kind of football fan. Got force-fed it from an early age, and I have occasionally been glad about that and mostly sad about it. I don't really remember before the Panthers, but I do remember being really little, like kindergarten, and being vaguely aware that my dad had done something with the Panthers, like buying something with them. And that I now know as an adult was like season tickets, basically. They called them personal seat licenses.
Now, is your family still season ticket holders?
Yeah. My dad and my cousin, who is closer to my dad's age than mine, like I said, we're like day one PSL purchasers. Cousin sold them, but my dad still has the seats, although I don't think he has been in person to a game in a couple of years, but he still has them and he sells them on the ticket exchange.
Okay, and you also played football growing up. Is it chicken or the egg? I mean, did playing football come first and then the Panthers fandom, or was it Panthers fandom and then you started playing football?
Definitely Panthers fandom first by a lot. Like I said, I was sort of dyed in the wool from like a really young age. Like I feel like I got into football before a lot of other people, even like other people that I know that are super into football as adults. I think Ryan, you and I think that was probably one of the things that we started to be friends about is like in 3rd grade, we were both already like pretty into football. And we had that teacher, Mr. Stanton, getting his second shout out on the podcast, who had some in-class football stuff going on. And so, even as like an elementary schooler, I was like a watch every game level fan, which is nice. When your home team's on TV every week, that's a lot easier.
Absolutely.
I might need to get Mr. Stanton on the line here. He's getting a lot of press.
Yeah, he's actually going to be our guest for week 3. Can't wait. Shout out Mr. Stanton, the GOAT. Yeah. I wanted to ask you this, Nixon. Obviously, you've been a Panthers fan for a majority of your life. There have been many great Panthers that have come and gone. Who is your all-time favorite Panther? Do you have one?
So the true answer is kind of a cheap one. I'm just going to put it out there. Steve Smith. That's it. That's definitely the answer. But that's like every Panthers fan's answer. So I'll throw out a slightly deeper cut. Probably the player that I care the most about in comparison to the general fan base, the hipster take is Wesley Walls. My first jersey was like a classic tight end, a 90s receiving tight end, which was less of a thing back then. And yeah, number 85, that was the jersey I had.
Wow. Now is Wesley Walls, I must admit, I recognize the name. I couldn't pick his face out of a lineup. Was he one of these guys that were good enough to like make the Panthers Hall of Fame, or was he just sort of a blip on the radar?
I honestly don't know. I don't have great perspective on that because I was a kid. I feel like he was more of a blip probably than he was like a lasting impact kind of guy. The Panthers don't really have any players in the like Canton Hall of Fame yet. I know that they do have like a Ring of Honor or something. But I'm gonna look that up. You've made me curious. I'll update later.
Sure.
In a future segment.
Yes.
So Nixon, I have some trivia for you. Testing your Panther fandom. Who is the number one all-time leading scorer for the Panthers?
John Casey.
Correct. Can you name the rest of the top
Wow.
five?
Can I name the rest of the top five?
Yeah.
Probably not. I'm gonna throw out a bunch of names and just see if any of them get there. Cam Newton,
Correct.
Graham Gano, Jake
Correct.
Delhomme, D'Angelo Williams,
Close.
Muhsin Muhammad.
Close.
I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other kickers that were with the team for a long time, but John Casey was there for so long.
Yeah.
That
You're missing your favorite player.
Steve Smith is on the list.
Number 3. And then the only other one was Jonathan Stewart.
All right, Nixon, another question for you. How did you come to found and become the commissioner of this great league that we're all a part of, the West Park Fantasy Football League?
All right, I'm going to answer that question, but I do have a quick update. Wesley Walls is in the Panthers Hall of Honor.
That's big. Okay.
Honestly, Ryan, like you might be able to help me answer this question. I don't know. Like I remember that I started a fantasy football league on like Yahoo or something with a bunch of the guys that we were friends with in like middle school. That was super casual and ultimately sort of fell apart. And then I remember that in early high school, we were in this league that was commissioned by a guy named Brock, who literally just like cheated. He literally just went in and changed scores for a couple of guys that he was like better friends with. I think just thought it would be funny. But at about that time, like we were starting to be old enough to where we actually sort of processed and, we're starting to sort of understand fantasy football and how it actually worked. So it was kind of frustrating to have this league that just like didn't make sense. So yeah, coming out of that league that Brock commissioned, I don't know if I ran a league that same year, but coming out of that, it was kind of like, all right, like I'm going to run a league that's actually serious and we're not going to, be changing scores and stuff like that. Who wants to join that league?
And WPFL was established in 07. And
we think like, yeah, roughly
Yes.
07. We had a conversation one time, like, oh, when did we start doing this thing? And like 07 was the like best approximate we can come up with. That's why the league name on ESPN is approximately 07, because we don't actually know. Some people in this league were playing fantasy football with me way back before that, but we had no idea, just no idea what was going on.
I remember it starting in 11th grade, so that checks out.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned how the league has been around for a while, how there have been other iterations before, many founding members who are no longer with us, still alive, but just not in the league. Who is one owner in all of WPFL history that you wish could come back?
I mean, I have a couple. I think Dane is the name that jumps out to mind for me because he definitely was in all of those early iterations. I'm going to give Colin a shout out too, just because like I feel like he's been a core part of the group for a long time. And I thought that he was a really good member in every way, except for that he was missing one requirement. Which is that, don't make a mockery of the league. He just didn't quite take the actual gameplay serious enough. Everything else, I thought he was a great league member.
I miss Cam. Cam was a no-show for so long, barely talked, but meeting him in person, he was a quality guy, and he was doing all right for a bit. So Nixon, jumping off of that, what's your biggest regret as commissioner?
Literally so many. Like I to be real for a moment, I take this league really seriously, not the fantasy football part of it, but the part of just like keeping all of our guys together here. And like, I don't know, maybe I think this is probably starting to sound less weird to people now as we get older, but I always have had this kind of like pipe dream vision of us all like being old, like the core group of us, and still having this to bond over. And to get real, I mean, we all live apart now. And, there's kind of an epidemic, guys, of like male friendships not lasting into like 30s and stuff. This is a great excuse for me to talk to you guys like way too much. So decisions that I've made that were fantasy football related that like actually made people mad or upset that don't normally get upset are the ones that really stand out to me. So the one that I always go to is when I made what I think was an okay decision, especially when the league was less mature, to make it a super flex league, but did not properly communicate that to everybody. And a lot of people got really mad about that, but Forrest in particular got really mad about the lack of communication because he's not all up in the group me every day. He was really upset about that, and that's the one that like really, really sticks with me, which is why we have all this rigmarole and process around the rule changes every year, because I'd way rather err on that side.
Would you say, Nixon, that anyone in the league, maybe Doug, has ever taught you a lesson as commissioner?
I think lots of lessons have been taught. I've never learned.
I also heard somewhere that you are a breaker of ankles.
Yeah, that's true.
What's the story there?
Back in West Park, we used to play a lot of like pickup basketball and stuff, and it's like everyone's included. So, we're playing against Doug, and he's guarding me, and I'm at point guard, and it's like normally I'm kind of just like playing for fun, But one time I just decided to teach him a lesson and crossed him up, and it was a mistake because he had like some college stuff riding on his ankles as a runner, so I shouldn't have done it. That's another regret that I have. Sometimes you got to break an ankle,
Is that the reason why Georgia Tech didn't win the ACC championship in track and field? Because of a crossover from you?
Ryan, I would like to play along with that joke and respond to it, but I genuinely have no idea if track and field has a championship because I don't follow competitive track and field. So,
Nixon, how do you feel having commissioned this league for so long, but haven't won in recorded history, honestly?
Yeah, I do feel pretty strongly that I won in one of those early years that we were talking about earlier. However, I just want to put that on the record, but I am down to not acknowledge the unrecorded years. But yeah, how do I feel about it? I don't know. Fine, honestly. I do really want to win. But I've drafted some bad teams, so I don't think I necessarily deserved to win. I had one ridiculous team one year that probably should have won, but other than that, my teams have been mid.
What are you doing to change that trajectory?
Well, Todd, that's a great question. I don't know. Not much apparently, because I drafted poorly again. I do a little review the last couple of years of all the teams, and I do pride myself on being objective about it. I've rated myself very low 2 of the 3 years that I've done it, and this was one of those years. I don't think my team is very good. So I don't know. Come trade me if anybody wants to give me a generous trade offer.
I personally do not, but thank you for the offer.
Okay, sure.
All right, Nixon. Well, final question. We are going to offer this to all of our guests in the upcoming season. But if you have one sentence for the league, one thing you'd like to tell them, what comes to mind? Anything?
All right. My one sentence for the league is gonna get a little real again. I would just say don't quit this league, please. Nobody else. It made me real sad, so make me happy.
Todd, I didn't think that I would be brought to tears when putting together Buffalo Boys, but here I am, episode 2, bawling right now because of Mr. Ball. So Nixon, thank you for that.